extra practice, the homework on one-sided limits to make sure we're on the same page for this. So evaluate the limits for each function. So you're given, for number one, a piecewise. So when it's less than or equal to 1, there's the function. When it's greater than 1, it's the bottom function. And then the little minus sign tells you the left. So at 1, the left is the top. So we're just going to plug into the top, and you get the answer -1. And then we're going to substitute into the bottom, and for the right, the answer is 3. We're going to do more of that work on the next lesson in terms of evaluating limits algebraically, but off a graph. So number 2, we're going to do it on the graph. So again, we're going to go to Desmos, and I'm going to type it in. So fraction line 5x plus 1, 25x squared, subtract 1. And then what's the limit at 1/5? So if I look here really carefully, I could also change the scale. Maybe it'll change the scale to 1/5 for me. So at 1/5, so these are 5 scores across. So 1/5 is here. I want you to notice there's an asymptote at 1/5. To the right, it's going to infinity, and to the left, it's going to -infinity. So at 1/5, it splits into 2 directions, and I'm going to write that answer. So the little minus sign, that's -infinity. So to the left, it goes down, and to the right, it goes up at 1/5. The next one is the absolute value. So fraction line, the absolute value of x subtract 3, and then 4x subtract 12. And then what's happening to the left and right as x approaches 3? So as x approaches 3, what's the y value? From the left, it's -1/4, or -0.25. And then from the right, what's the answer? So if I look from the right, what's the y coordinate from the right? And it's 0.25. So from the left, it's -0.25, and from the right, it's +0.25. All right, number 4. Type it in with me. That's 2 cosecant 2x. And it's as at pi over 2. So I'm going to change this so we can see where pi over 2 is. So I'm going to change the scale to pi over 2. And then, where is it at? At pi over 2. So what's happening at pi over 2? So I want you to notice, and if I can zoom out here. So here at pi over 2, on the left, it's going up forever, and then to the right, it's going down forever. So the left end behavior is -infinity, and the right end behavior is +infinity. All right, let's continue here on Desmos. So number 5. So x plus 3. And then in the denominator, x squared plus 4x plus 4. What's happening at 2? So I'm going to change the scale so it's not in radians. So we can do a scale of 2. Oops. So at -2, so when x approaches -2, what's happening? Notice that both parts of the graph are going up forever. So at -2, the limit is +infinity. That's where the graph is going to around -2, and both sides agree on it. It's not one side going up and one side going down. Number 6. So we have x cubed, subtract 2x squared, subtract 8x. In the denominator, we have 2x squared, subtract 4x. And the question is, as x approaches 2 from the right and left. So look what's happening at 2. One side's going up, and the other side is going down. So It's a one-sided limit question. It says only from the right side. So what's happening on the right side of positive 2? And you can see the graph is going down. So the answer is negative infinity. Number 7, x minus 1. And then x squared subtract 1. And then as x approaches 1 from the right. So positive 1 from the right. So if I look at positive 1, which is right here, what's happening at positive 1? I want you to see that there's a hole there. But if you look at the y coordinate, notice from the left and right, the y coordinate agrees. So the y coordinate right there, if you look at the scale, is positive 1/2. And there's your answer. So looking off the graph, can you find the limit? All right, next one. X squared minus 4x plus 3. So x squared subtract 4x plus 3. And then negative 2x squared plus 8. And what happens as x approaches 1? So if I look at 1, what's the answer here? And you can see, as x approaches 1, yes. So for that, as x approaches 1 from the right and left, what's the y coordinate? It's not even undefined there. It's defined and continuous around it. So what's the y value? That's the limit. And the answer is 0. Number 9, negative. X squared. And then 2x subtract 4. And it says as x approaches 2. So let's look at 2 here. What's happening? So if you plugged in 2, you couldn't get an answer. So to the left and to the right, let's see what the answer is. So negative. So to the left, the answer obviously goes up to infinity. Does it go somewhere else? Oh yeah, so at 2 to the right, where does it go? I didn't see that part of the graph. So one side goes up, one side goes down. It's a two-sided limit question, so therefore this limit does not exist. All right, number 10, negative 2x plus 2. And then in the denominator, x subtract 4. So as x approaches 3 from the left. So if I look here, as x approaches 3 from the left, what's happening? So in this question, I just want you to notice that 3 will actually give you an answer. It's at 4 where the asymptote is. So what's happening at 3? So at 3, what's the answer? And the answer is 4. That's the limit. That's also the value of the function. They happen to agree. So the limit as x approaches 3, the answer is 4. Next one. Can you find a limit off a graph? The square root of 2x. And then in the denominator, x subtract 5. And the question is, I'll click home on this one, get it centered. The question is, as x approaches 8, so as x approaches 8, notice the answer there, 1.3 repeating. That's another way of saying 1 1/3 or 4/3. So we're going to write that answer down. So 1.3 repeating, or 1 1/3. That's what the y value is. So this is where we're at so far for our answers. So from 5 on, those are the answers I put down as I look off the graph. Number 12. So we have the absolute value of 2x plus 6. And then in the denominator, I have x plus 3. And it's as x approaches negative 3. So as x approaches negative 3, I want you to see at negative 3 there's a jump. It's a two-sided question. There's no little plus or minus sign. So because there's a jump at negative 3, it does not exist. So no limit exists there when x approaches negative 3. Number 13. The square root of x plus 3. X subtract 3. So that's what the graph looks like. What is it from the left? So 3 from the left. No, there's an asymptote at 3. So from the left, that's a minus, no, it's a plus sign. My eyes. So there's a little plus sign there. So it's from the right. So from the right, what direction is it going? And the answer is it's going to infinity and beyond. Here we go. So that's a little plus sign. So it's infinity. All right, a couple more left and your homework's done. So number 14. These are trig questions. So let me type that in. So that's cosecant 2x. And what's happening as x approaches 2 pi? So let's change this scale. I'll just change it to 2 pi. And see what's happening at 2 pi. So at 2 pi, the right side goes up, the left side goes down. It's asking for the left. So to the left of 2 pi, it goes to negative infinity. Next one. Negative 3 over 2. Tangent 1/2 x. So there's the function. What's happening at negative pi? So can we find that? Let's change this scale so you can actually see negative pi a little bit easier. So at negative pi, the right side goes up and the left side goes down. So it's not a two-sided limit. I mean, it's not a one-sided limit. So the two-sided limit does not exist because they don't agree. The right side goes up and the left side goes down. All right, number 16. So the answer to number 15 is does not exist. Number 16. Oh, this is going to be a bit fun to type in. So secant, parentheses, x plus 3 pi over 4. Close the parentheses. Plus 4. Good. And what's the value at 5 pi over 4? Now, for 5 pi over 4, I'm going to try to change the scale again. If we change it to pi over 4, maybe it'll allow me. So if I change it to pi over 4, 5 pi over 4 is right here, right after pi. And if I look, it's not, I don't think, where the asymptote is at 5 pi over 4. I think there's a value to find at 5 pi over 4. So I'm going to do that here. I'm going to write this as a function. So I'm going to write, what's the value at 5 pi over 4? So I don't think there's a jump there. There's an actual value there. It's 5. Like up here. Oh, look at that. So can you even see it? So you can actually see it when I put it on the graph. So at 5 pi over 4, what's the y coordinate? And because it's continuous there, the value of the function and the limit are the same number. So the answer is 5. All right, let's type in piecewise. I think it's good practice anyway. So I'm going to type in f at x equals, and the top piece is negative 2x plus 5. But it's only valid when x is less than or equal to 3. So this is how you type it in to do a domain restriction for Desmos. Then I'm going to write down f at x equals again for x subtract 4. But again, I'm going to press space fancy parentheses, and it's when it's greater than 3. Close it. So here's my graph and what it looks like. Oh, I forgot to put down x. X is greater than 3. Okay, so here's my graph and what it looks like. I'm going to change the scale. I don't need radians anymore, so I'll just change the scale back to 1 so you can see it. So look here. Can you see here as x approaches 3 from the left, that 3 from the left and 3 from the right agree what the y value is? So look across, what is that y value? And the answer is -1. All right, one more to do. So again, a piecewise, the top piece, let me just change this, is x plus 7. And that's valid when x is less than -1. So let me just change that. And then the bottom piece is a parabola. So that's x squared plus 4x plus 3. And that's valid when x is greater than or equal to -1. And then I want you to look at what's happening at -1. So if I look carefully at -1, oh, and it says from the right. So the other one said from the left, but they agreed. So the two-sided and one-sided both existed, both are the same answer. For number 18, it says only from the right. So from the right, what's the y coordinate at -1? So from the right, the answer is 0. If you did it from the left, up here, from the left, the answer would have been, well, it's undefined, but you can see it's approaching what y coordinate? It's approaching +6. So if there was a minus sign, the answer would have been 6. A plus sign means from the right side, the green, what's the value there? And so the answer is the y coordinate for the limit. So the answer is 0. And that's it. You did your homework. So, Mr. G Math, over and out. Here are the solutions to it. And until next time, and I'm super proud that you did your work.